Hello, hello. Okay, this episode is, ooh, it's a juicy one. And I really wanted to bring this topic up because it is probably one of the main things that we all go through, we all speak on, we all say these certain things without realizing how much we do it. And so you're probably just like, what are you talking about, Sonia? So let's get into this topic today, which is all about judgment. Now, I know that there's like obvious times when we are judging certain things and situations and people, but there is a lot of judgment within our own language in all of the micro moments in our days, which those are the times that I feel like we really do not catch them. So how many times do you like say like, oh, like I woke up so late today, or oh, like I just spent so many hours scrolling on Instagram, or I definitely did like too little in that workout, or that workout was way too short, or I spent way too long on social media, or even saying things like, oh, like I was so horrible in that interview, or I can't believe how bad I did on that test, right? So a lot of the time this is like, like these are such common things that we say, and we don't really think much about the impact that those statements have on our own beliefs and the thoughts that we think about ourselves. And a lot of the time, like those statements are judgments towards ourselves in like the smallest ways throughout our day, right? So I really want to bring this lens from a judgmental space and shifting to a more compassionate lens. But a lot of the time, we're like, how the heck do I go from like being so critical of myself to compassionate? It's kind of like a spectrum, right? When we think about it, is like it's not just like a snap of a fingers, all of a sudden I am compassionate towards myself. Like it takes time, and the process to move through that critical lens of the things that we go through is building curiosity when we are shifting through these things. So I wanted to share this because this is probably one of the main things that all of us really go through on a day to day, but also it is one of the biggest components that I work through with my clients. And a lot of the time we attach meaning and feelings and stories to these statements. And it makes it feel a lot heavier, a lot more daunting, a lot more upsetting, a lot more overwhelming. And we're adding additional feelings to those scenarios, which aren't necessarily needed, right? So I want to flip the lens here to help you have a concrete way to walk away today with, to navigate these judgmental components, and how to really shift into a more curious and open and compassionate lens towards ourselves. So, one, let's look at the data. So, when you say these certain things to yourself of like, oh, I did so bad on that test, I spent way too long on social media. When we create those statements, it's a very subjective internal component that we are attaching judgment, we are attaching like possible negativity. And a bigger component to this is that we are attaching these thoughts and deeper beliefs about who we are as a person into these statements. Like if I say like, oh, like I can't believe I woke up late again today, that is telling my brain essentially that like, it brings me down the rabbit hole of I suck at waking up early. I can't do it. And it can easily fall down that trap and that rabbit hole of additional thoughts and feelings about ourselves. And so we want to be able to catch that. So when I say like, what is the data when you are going through certain circumstances, that simply means like that you're looking at things factually, like pure objective data with no feelings attached, no thoughts, or no stories added. As essentially a lot of the time we can say something about ourselves and then we place meaning on that to create this lens of like, oh, because I didn't wake up on time, I am not a morning person, right? It then solidifies these like deeper limiting beliefs in ourselves that like we might not be able to have the capabilities to move through that. And we place meaning, and the more meaning we place on things, the heavier it can feel. So let's remove that, reduce that, and just really allow ourselves to bring a more observer lens. Like you are looking at it as if it was like on paper, very factual things. So let's dive into that. A good rule of thumb when you think of like the data to really collect and focus on when it comes to these kinds of statements is attaching numbers wherever possible. And as I've said, like avoiding the language that is attached to judgment. So certain words that could be judgmental are the word enough, like I'm not doing enough in my job, I didn't eat enough today, things like that, or saying too much or too little, like, oh, like I ate way too much today, or I spent way too little time with my family, or thinking of things that is good versus bad, or early or late. When we say those types of things, there is a judgment towards those too. Some other ones are like saying like, oh, I did way too long or way too short in that workout, or attaching negative words too, saying like horrible, bad, stupid, like that was such a bad decision, or I really sucked at that taking that test, like I'm so horrible, right? Those are a bit more obvious ones, but really peeling back the layers to say, okay, like how often am I actually saying like those kinds of statements to myself? But the way to shift through that to build more curiosity that leads you towards a more compassionate lens is shifting to the facts. So if I said like, oh, like I woke up, I can't believe I woke up late today, I would literally switch that to a factual statement. I woke up at 8 a.m. today. Like, do you really like feel the difference there? Like, there's not a feeling attached to that statement. You're not creating an assumption or a perception about yourself. You're simply stating, I woke up at 8 a.m. In my mind, that is probably really late. And, but do I have to place meaning on that? Or can I look at it objectively, to look at the data itself to say, okay, today I woke up at 8. Yesterday I woke up at 8:15, and it's like you're allowing yourself to look at the data from a pure reflective lens to say, I can reflect on this data and walk away from it to say, okay, these are the 3 days this week that I woke up at like past 8 a.m. I would ideally like to wake up at 7:30. How can I support myself through that? Do you see where I'm going with that? It's like you immediately have this internal shift of being able to navigate those obstacles and those situations from a much more curious lens, and help yourself, like help future you navigate those things without it getting muddled with additional feelings and thoughts and frustrations or stories that you're adding onto those scenarios that are not needed. So, other examples of this is like I did 2 out of my 3 habits today, rather than saying, oh, I did like hardly any of my habits today, right? Or I completed a 30-minute workout, versus if I just said like, oh, like I hardly did a really, like my workout was so short today. Um, Or if you're, saying like, oh, like I really wish I read more last night. I hardly read anything. You can literally state the facts. I read 2 chapters of my book. And you can also think about this from like looking at your calendar, right? Like if you are trying to assess and notice like and make changes in your life, this objectivity brings you towards a more clear and decisive way of how to approach and navigate these things going forward. Because if I came at it from the lens of like, oh, like I can't believe I woke up late today, I'm already going into trying to navigate that from a frustrated place. I have this added feeling and attachment to the fact that I woke up. There's a lot of like critical um feelings towards myself. And when I think about like how am I going to navigate that going forward, I'm already coming from a place of frustration when I'm trying to navigate like next steps. And so I might come from it more from a place of like, oh, I can't believe I did that. I need to do better tomorrow. And that doesn't support the way to move through that is going to be a long term support of long term change and positive experience and connection with yourself from that lens. So, really allowing yourself, like, I wanted to give this as like a concrete strategy that you can walk away with from this episode to really, one, notice these thoughts and feelings that you are attaching to certain circumstances that you're going through and be able to pause. Like, everything starts from our thoughts and beliefs that then trickle into those thoughts and beliefs will then create the feelings in those moments to then lead to the actions and results that we receive. Everything starts with our thoughts and beliefs. So, really allowing ourselves to shift away from placing meaning in these moments and being able to look at the facts. So, when I say this too, like thinking about your calendar and what your day looks like, rather than saying like, oh my God, I can't believe I just spent so many hours on social media, literally state the facts. I spent an hour on social media after work, right? Or even just thinking about like, I spent 2 hours in meetings today. I supported 5 clients. I took my lunch at 2 p.m. I went to the gym at 8 p.m. There's a lot of numbers, like you see where those shifts. I removed the feelings that were attached to it and the judgment, and I replaced it with numbers so that it was concrete exactly as it happened without placing an additional story to those moments. And another way too is thinking about like, oh, is there anything extra that you accomplished or completed today? And bringing in that perspective of positive things in your day, once again, that are factual. So, like, I finished a project 2 days before it was due. I received a 5-star rating from one of my clients. I practiced my dancing for 1 hour tonight. I purchased a new workout outfit. All of these things are factual and objective that occurred in my environment, and there's no feelings attached to them. And now I'm also not saying like don't address your feelings. I'm simply saying this is a way to support yourself to bring more acceptance, more love, more curiosity that all lead to that deeper, connected, compassionate lens towards yourself. And this also really supports a growth mindset where you are looking at these situations and circumstances that you're going through from a lens without any bias. And you're really just looking at it objectively. Like, as I said, you're an observer looking in, being like, here's the exact things that happened today. And how can I support myself going forward? So that is what I have for you today. Really allow yourself to catch when you say certain statements, whether that's to other people, about yourself, within relationships, at work, like really catch yourself when it comes to these types of words that you're using about a situation and flip it and say, how can I create the data here? What is the data and the factual objective information? Which honestly, when you shift into this lens, it's like a flip of a switch in your head where you're like, it releases the added stories in those moments and really helps you navigate them a lot more from a supportive view. So that is what I have for you today. If you are wanting to get more support to navigate these types of situations, this is something that I am leaning real deep into with a ton of different resources and videos and action steps within the Redefine Collective. It is a 12-month mentorship collective where you are supported alongside others and you're getting all the resources and the tools. And then you're also getting mentored by me along the way. And if that is something you're interested in, check the link in the show notes. And I hope you guys have a great day.